Hi folks, it's me, Joe Pasevich. Welcome back to Control Room. It is another Wednesday. It is November 19th, 2025. We are approximately, is it true? We're approximately 31 days away from the winter solstice. We always celebrate the winter solstice here on Control Room, okay, among other things. The shortest day of the year. So if you have seasonally defective disorder, which I think I have, you're encountering these short days, and it's like really doing a number on your system. And some people can get quite bummed out. It's a recognized, documented thing. So if you're doing, having to deal with that, having to get through that, don't be afraid. Keep in mind you're not alone. And in 31 days, we will be at the shortest day of the year, and then there'll be more light, the days will be getting longer, so to speak. So hang in there, all right? Next week is Thanksgiving. I think the studio's closed next week, like Wednesday, Thursday. So if I do get a chance to come in earlier, I'll try to bring you a nice show, and we'll put it in the can so it'll play, and you can sit around with the family and watch Joe Pasevich and argue about town politics, okay? That'll take your mind off of other nasty things, all right? By the way, the Control Room Gold line is open. For those of you who have access to the Control Room Gold line, that is open, and if you do need to make a comment, bring it on. But we do have so much to try to get through tonight, it's gonna be kind of tough. First of all, I wanna say thank you to everybody that helped with the petitioning. I have no idea, 20 or 30 petitions, I understand, statewide petitions are being circulated this year. And of course, the one that I've been most concerned about is what they call Petition U, so the big U down here. The petitions are given numbers or letters of the alphabet. And that is the one that repeals MBTA, the MBTA Community Act, chapter, for you legal eagle beagles out there, Chapter 48, Section 3A of the Mass General Laws. Remember, as I've been trying to explain to people, zoning is under the control of the local towns. Like a town like Marshfield, the town meeting has to vote if you're going to make any changes.
You might just want to let them know that the lower says November 12th, but it's actually the 19th.
Oh, that's right there.
Oh, it's not the same. I'll go to the phone. You're good. Never mind.
Okay, never mind. I just got a heads up from technical staff here about a display issue. Anyway, like I was saying, MBTA zoning is Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 3A. And in general, if you want to change zoning in a place like Marshfield, only town meeting can do that. That's Section 5 of Chapter 48. So if somebody wants to change zoning in this town to create an overlay district or put an industrial area here or a residential 2 district here or change the zoning bylaws in some way, town meeting can do that. That's it. So then the state says, oh, you must set up an area under MBTA Communities Act, you must set up an area that can accommodate some number of apartments in a high density, high occupancy project or projects. You must set up an area where that can be done, where a developer can come in and say, hey, I want to put 300 apartments here, and they're all going to have 3 rooms, and they're going to be 3 bedrooms, they're going to be market rate, and I don't care how many people fit into them, whatever. And they can do it. It's like by right. That's basically what the state law says. Now, the town can tweak it a little bit, but not to a degree where it's going to make a difference, the real difference in the impacts, okay, to a town. So the number of apartments that you can put into one of these MBTA zones is pegged to the number of units in the town based on, the last census, I think it is, census year. So in Marshfield's case, we were being told we had to set up an overlay district that would accommodate 1,158 apartments. All right, and they're doing that to towns all over. towns that they claim are serviced by the MBTA. Now, the Democrat and collaborationist Republicans on Beacon Hill were saying, if you have MBTA service, you should provide apartments for people that use the MBTA. See, this is a canard. This is not true. This is not factual, based in fact. My grandfather used to take the trolley to go to his job in Cambridge. Your grandfather probably did too. I would take the MBTA bus line to get to and from school. Other people would take the subway from Quincy Adams to go to a job down on Milk Street or something like that. But what's happening? Jobs are not all centralized in the hub of Boston anymore. And the MBTA doesn't service the, what's the word, co-radial or outward regions of around the city with cross connections. So the MBTA is not the main road or the main conduit for people to get from the suburbs into the city to work because of the jobs are falling off, people are working from home. The model just doesn't work or fit anymore. But they use it as an excuse because some people aren't smart enough or up to date enough to realize that it doesn't work anymore. That situation does not exist anymore. But they still say, oh, if you're serviced by the MBTA, you have to. You must build apartments. What, so the serf class can live packed into an apartment with 2 or 3 other people in their bedroom? And then on their meager wages, with their carrying their little lunch pail or their backpack, trudge over to the train station and stand out in the cold waiting for the train or the bus to come? There's this image in their minds of these controllers and the people who believe 15-minute cities that there's going to be this serf class that's never going to be able to make enough money, even with the 50-year mortgage like Trump is touting, which is insane. They're never going to make enough money, so we need to make them as comfortable as possible on their making peanuts wages, and then have a hovel to run back to and close the door and at least be warm and not freeze to death. And then breathe all the bad air inside a lot of these projects that a lot of these projects are exhibit. So they want to set up these kinds of accommodations, almost like work camps. You know, when I lived in like Ukraine, Russia, and I was all traveling and living in all those places, you see the vestiges left over of the Soviet era. During Khrushchev's era, they made these giant apartment blocks out of concrete. And during the Stalinist era, they did it. And then even after that, they were still building these giant concrete complexes right in the cities. And yes, it's true, you could, and I did it myself. I used to leave my apartment and go down the street and hop on the bus and go over to the subway station down the road. And then from there, I'd go to my office, wherever I was working. And that was the way it was set up. And there were actually subway stops with names like Tractor Factory or the Institute of Culture or something like that. So you'd leave your apartment, go to your job at the Tractor Factory, or you go to your job at the electronics factory or something like that. That was how these people were managed. But and there's something about putting people into these kinds of boxes and hovels that affects them mentally. It affects their spirit. It affects their sense of liberty and self-control and freedom of action and expression. It really does. And that's what they're trying to do here. Meanwhile, guess what? The elites will have the buildings with ocean views on 18 acres of land next to golf courses, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So they're creating a dystopian, divided, stratified society, and to me, MBTA zoning is a symptom of that, as was 40B. Both bad laws. You want to plan for housing for people. This is just my opinion. You want to plan for housing for people that is compatible with the environment, and doesn't stifle or encapsulate or imprison human beings like this. That's what you want to do. Higher crime rates, bad environmental conditions, I hear all the time related to high density projects, even the ones around here. Sometimes some of these projects are thrown up only with profit in mind, only with basically creating a place where people are basically handled like merchandise or like they're like warehoused. So let's create housing that gives people a sense of openness, freedom, good healthy environments. That may mean the town gets built out. Yes, we have to segregate areas for water resources protection, forested areas, avoid heat islands, maintain the vistas and the views that we want to maintain, make sure the runoff is under control. All that's going to happen. But the actual buildable land eventually is going to go away, like it has in many areas already. It's going to go away in Marshfield someday. There's not going to be just, I mean, I know of like 4 projects going on right now. And names of developers and people that you would all recognize, where there was like large patches of wooded areas, the big 120-foot pines, you know, just wildlife. Those are going away. As we speak, or as at this time in history, and this week, this month, this year, trees are being just clear cut, ground is being dug up, perk tests are being done in preparation for laying out lots, et cetera, et cetera. If you were lucky enough to buy a house next to a wooded area, it ain't going to be, and it's high and dry. It's like what they call upland. It ain't going to be there much longer, you know. And who's controlling that? Who's overseeing that? Who's watching out for it? Is it your town planner? Is it the members of the planning board or the zoning board? No. To me, the zoning board is just always build whatever you can get away with, you know. And the idea about what they call non-conforming uses. In other words, if you have a house, just say this is a lot of land, and you have a house up in the corner here, and it's like a rectangular shape, and it's like this, and on 2 sides of that, where that house is, the boundary lines are very close to the outside wall of the house. Well, those distances between the house walls and the boundary lines may be what they call non-conforming. Maybe the distance is less than 15 feet from the house wall to the side wall. Well, you know what the zoning board thinks? They think now you can take that wall of the house and extend it all, when you do an addition, all the way along the line parallel to that boundary, even if it's just 10 feet away from that boundary when it should be 15. They call that altering a non-conforming use, and that's legal. They consider that legal. So now a little tiny rectangular shaped house in the corner of a lot over here now basically fills up the entire parcel. It's massive. Go look at that house on Plymouth Ave and tell me if you don't think that's what happened there. All right? Ask questions. Anyway, so that's what 40A is, Section 3A. We're trying to get it repealed. If that is repealed, guess what happens? MBTA zones go away. I don't even know if a town would then have to vote to rescind the placement of an MBTA zone overlay. It may just be that they just erased. In any case, the obligation to have an MBTA zone and allow for building on it, like the Department of the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, what a name, is trying to dictate to all the communities around Eastern Mass that they call an MBTA service. I don't even know if you have to rescind the law, but one thing is for sure, we will not have to obey it, okay? It may mean having to erase it from our bylaws. And what a shame that people were suckered into voting for MBTA zoning. I'm ashamed of you folks. You bought the scare tactics. And the scare, remember, passing MBTA zoning was very carefully thought out. It was strategized very carefully. One thing they wanted to do is remove your fear of the government. people saw MBTA zoning and said, what are the developers and the connected developers and politicians up on Beacon Hill trying to do to us? They're just trying to make money. They're trying to create 15-minute cities. Go to like Pine Hills and Plymouth and tell me you like that kind of a layout, okay? Which is basically a 15-minute city in my opinion. But so they thought to ram this through, they had to take away your fear. They had to make politicians and your town planner in Marshfield and your select board, certain select board members and your town council and all the people pushing MBTA zoning, they wanted you to not fear them and to trust, just trust us. Trust us. I'll still love you in the morning. I'm only gonna a little bit, you know, blah, blah, blah. You know the scheme. Just trust us. So how do they do that, in my opinion? It was genius. You had the town's lawyer get up and say, oh, now everybody hates this law. We all agree it's terrible. But this is the smartest thing. This is the smartest thing to do, is to put the overlay on Plain Street where there's already some buildings. But just trust us. We're like you. Don't you see? We feel your pain. We're like you. Oh, forget about liberty. You know the old saying. So be safe. Be safe and vote for the MBTA zoning here in Marshfield. Nothing will ever get built there. Oh, maybe just a little bit. Maybe you'll just get a little pregnant. Nothing will ever get built there. Baloney. If the price is right, it's going to get built. Even a couple of hundred more apartments on Plain Street, how do you think that's going to affect our services and our traffic flow? So they laughed at you. They tricked you into thinking this was the safe thing to do. So you would have to give up a little bit of your self-determination to get safety. And you know, was it Ben Franklin that said, those who will give up liberty for safety deserve neither. You watch what's going to happen. And you are being laughed at, ridiculed. And Diane Jordan, she put a post on social media, and she wrote, are you a gambler? You know, prior to this MBTA zoning vote coming up at town meeting, would you gamble the future of your town on a pipe dream? Diane Jordan saying that for you to resist the state telling you how to zone, telling you how to vote, and if you don't vote yes, you're voting the wrong way, for Diane Jordan to say that for you to resist being coerced and threatened, that's if you resist, you're living a pipe dream. That's called the United States of America. That's the spirit of liberty and freedom, Miss Jordan. So Diane Jordan attacked the voters. Would you throw the dice on a fantasy of some federal fairy godmother to come save Marshfield from the evil Massachusetts Attorney General and Governor? See, ridicule, like talking to you like you're a stupid child, or stupid, or both. And then she has to throw in the angle, this is about Trump. Because Diane Jordan basically hates conservatism, in my opinion. The quote, fight mentality is not, N-O-T caps, going to result in controlling the destiny of Marshfield. So for all you conservatives out there, give it up. And for all you libtards out there, or Democrats, or anti-Trumpers, I'm with you. Get to town meeting and vote to pass MBTA zoning. So the messages are not so subtle. And then you have your town planner come back. And then we have to remember one thing. The people that wrote this law, and they'll always say it was Governor Baker that signed it into law, all right? The legislature passed this. Baker was an idiot. At the same time, when the law was passed, there was like no consequences to not obeying it. Almost nothing, zero, nil. You might lose $100,000 in funding on some special program like planning for greenhouse gas awareness or something, you know, some program like that. So when it was passed and signed into law by Baker, it was a Trojan horse. It was innocuous. It was seen as harmless. No one's going to adopt MBTA zoning. Besides, there's no penalties. It's a stupid idea. Plus, there's no penalties for not obeying it. So it just kind of slipped in. It slipped through the cracks. That's how it got passed. Then they started making the penalties bigger and bigger if you weren't willing to be coerced. That's the history of it. And don't forget, it's your planning board that voted to bring it back for a third vote. And we'll have to explore more what the planning board did when they brought this back for another vote. They're the ones to blame for bringing it back for another vote, with all the scare tactics that were employed. And I went to a seminar, a little gathering, where there was a group of people traveling town to town, and they were giving tips on how to run a campaign, how to get voters to come to town meeting, what to say to them, and make them vote for MBTA zoning. And while Governor Healy says, oh, we're in a housing crisis, we need lots of housing units right away. But at the same time, the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, whew, what a misnomer that is saying, oh, out of 177 communities, 100 have already passed MBTA zoning. Hooray, it's a big success. But of course they know that zones are being set up, overlay zones are being set up, where the voters in the towns that are adopting these zones are openly saying nothing will ever get built there. Or if it does, it'll be decades from now. And you think the state is just going, oh, that's good, okay with us. Because they know now it's about a numbers game. They want to be able to brag how many communities have adopted MBTA zoning. Then, once they get the vast majority of people finally coerced or tricked into voting for this, then the hammer, I predict, will come down and they'll say, you need to relocate or redraw the lines on your MBTA zone because obviously you did it in bad faith. And a precedent will be set for the state dictating other zoning changes in every city and town. This sets a precedent. So don't forget who's the fault. People like Diane Jordan who pushed it, your planning board, and all the rest of the so-called leadership in your town. I'm not talking about Eric Kelley or Trish Simpson. All right, I'm leaving them out of this because they were steadfastly remained in opposition to this. Now, the other thing that's going on, of course, and so these petitions have all been submitted to the town clerks around the state. All the signed petitions have been submitted. Now the town clerk's offices and the registrars of voters will have to now certify that the people that sign these petitions are real people, that they're voters, and then we'll collect all the petitions. And while they're doing the certification, the numbers are immediately electronically conveyed to the Secretary of State's office. So the Secretary of State will know, like within a week or so, what petitions that are out there circulating have got enough signatures. And you need like 74,567 or something signatures verified in order for the question like this to get on the ballot. I will spill the beans a little bit and say that I realize that this MBTA reform effort, or repeal effort, is not very well organized because I've been involved in several petition efforts over the decades and decades, going way, way back. And this one is not very well organized. I've seen a well-organized campaign. I've participated in well-organized campaigns. I did not initiate this campaign, and it's not that well organized. So I keep my fingers crossed that maybe other people are working harder, but I don't know what's going to happen. Now, in the meantime, we have some breaking news as of last night and today, and also we have a little bit of old news. And the old news, and then all these things tend to tie together. Now, the old news, of course, is the recall effort. Now, the recall effort had its, nexus or genesis in the impeachment of Joe P., in my opinion. Of course, there's decades of outsiders, so-called naysayers, freedom-loving people, freedom fighters in Marshfield wanting accountability, openness, transparency, and control on taxation that have been active in this town for many, many, many decades. Okay? then, amazingly, some outsiders started to get elected to various offices. More people began to participate and speak up at town meeting. People say to me all the time, Joe, thank you so much for saying what you do. You did at town meeting. I'm afraid to speak out. But years ago, we had Section 10. We started having a few victories. A couple of people began getting appointed here and there to boards and committees. And don't forget, the inside regime always very, very carefully vetted and selected appointments to boards and committees. And that was always done, in my time, behind closed doors without any big publicizing or exposure or discussion at any select board meeting. People just got appointed, and it was, I'm sure, done behind closed doors. People would send in an application, a letter of interest to wanting to be on a board or a committee, and they were very carefully vetted. Not like now, where it's all like incredibly open and lots of discussion going on. So, what happened was that, get back on track here. The recall effort really came as a result, as a reaction to what were the outsiders, the freedom lovers, the freedom fighters, beginning to make inroads into town government. And even when I got on the Housing Authority, my mission was, my concept of it, I should say, was that the town should know what we're doing. The town should be involved in what we're doing as a housing authority. And the housing authority should be above board and should be doing the utmost, or at least complying with the law, to publicize what they're doing and seek involvement and participation by the public. That was what I was trying to do. And right away, I got blowback. When I asked for information, I got stonewalled. I had to do public records requests to get information of certain types. I had to file an open meeting law violation complaint against my own board that I was then elected to. And boy, the blowback I got, the knives came out, and within a few months, they were trying to remove me from office. You remember me sitting in front of the select board for over 6 hours, being grilled, being lied about, being told Joe said this and Joe said that, when Joe didn't say this or say that. And then they came at me a second time. And the chairman of my board said, well, Joe, we're about to file again for your removal. I'm giving you the opportunity to resign. Before it was even filed, like I'm going to be intimidated. Really? You think so? And it went on from there. Then MBTA zoning came along. And then the Ferry Street 40B came along. And people could see the town was not listening to the people. I get up many times at town meeting and other meetings and said, why don't you, at the front of the room speaking to our leaders, why don't you get it? The people are telling you, no, we want you to fight this. And so finally the town entered a lawsuit against MBTA zoning. And currently there's a lawsuit before the Massachusetts State Supreme Court on MBTA zoning, the MBTA zoning law. And we're petitioning to try to get it off the books. And there'll be more and more and more and more and more until we get it right. Ken Sweezy and other legislators have introduced legislation to repeal or amend the MBTA zoning law. So that's where all this has led to, which led to the recall effort. But there had to be a catalyst or something to seize upon to do this recall effort. And you know what that was? That was me being called and threatened by the chief of police. Twice. I'm on my way to church, 8 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday. And I get a phone call on a recorded police line telling me to retract my statements. That was Sunday and Tuesday, the combination of those calls. What? I do a show. I'm a free speech advocate. I exercise my right to free speech. I defend everybody's right to free speech. People get up at meetings and just rake me over the coals. I go, thank you. That's your opinion. Thank you. You're entitled. Under the rules, you're entitled to have a time to say these things. Fine. Okay. That was a catalyst. And if you're threatened by somebody who belongs to an organization, a branch of the government that carries guns, whose people carry guns and are legally authorized to kill you if they perceive a certain situation, I think you want to reassert the idea that civilians control the military and the police, and that you're not going to put up with threats, veiled or unveiled, or coercive thoughts and ideas. No. Now, do I think police and military should be kind to the civilians, to the citizens, that they shouldn't always be looking to oppress them, shouldn't always, as George Orwell would say, not be putting a boot in your face? Should they be kind? Should they be like, okay, you're free to go. Oh, I see that the knife you have is a plastic knife. Well, just put that away, okay, and continue your protest. No, put the shackles on you, bring you to jail, and drag you through the court system. Two different things. Yes, military and police should be humane, should be sensitive to people's situations and conditions and limitations. Right, that's good. But when it gets to the point where everybody feels indebted or beholden, that's dangerous. And when subtle threats or not so subtle threats are issued, that's where we step over the line. Okay? Now we're in like a benevolent dictatorship situation, a loss of liberty, intimidation, self-censoring. That's what's happening now on a massive scale across this country. Nope, I'm not going to participate in self-censoring. I'm going to call it out when I feel threatened. I want all of our officials to be accountable, especially the ones that carry guns and can shoot me or you and kill you. That's what was the final trigger right there, was me standing up for my rights and your rights. That's what triggered the recall. It wasn't about getting Eric, so to speak. It wasn't about how Eric doesn't seem prepared. And Eric never threatened the chief of police. Never threatened the chief of police. And of course, Patty Riley made her comments on WATD. Remember that? WATD played it up. They played up the whole thing that there was going to be a recall attempt. They gave airtime to Patty Riley on WATD.
We are going to have a conversation about the recall election, hopefully that they're going to put together here. That's what this group is working toward here in Marshfield, to recall current Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, Eric Kelley. Joining me in studio, Patricia Riley. I knew you years ago when you were on the board, the select board here in Marshfield. Now, Recall Marshfield, big group with a big project going on. You're trying to recall current select board chair, Eric Kelley. First, why?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me today. Eric Kelley is going to cost this town a lot more than just the money that he's already costing us. We don't have a town administrator. He is trying to sneak things in through backdoor meetings. He's not supporting the schools. He is really going to cause the real estate values in this town to plummet. He's the opposite of the transparent board.
Eric Kelley was going to cause the town of Marshfield to completely fail. It was going to be doom and gloom and the end of the world. Marshfield, what would happen to Marshfield? Where was Marshfield going to go? What was going to happen to Marshfield? This is what Patricia Riley thinks was going to happen to Marshfield. There you go. Yeah, sure. Keep it up. I don't think so. Now, not to be outdone, what happened? Another pro-recall person had to also make an appearance. Oh, we got somebody on the control room gold line. Control room gold line, what can I do for you?
Did she forget about her integrity then?
The secret meetings, you mean Patty Riley with the select board?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no.
She forgot about that. And when she was running, didn't she make all kinds of promises to people that she never kept once she got in?
Oh,
I
absolutely.
mean, this woman shouldn't talk. Eric Kelly, whether you like Kelley or not, he's probably the most honorable person that ever sat on the board.
Eric is brutally honest.
Okay, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you. No, the caller makes a good point. Patty Riley, her credibility was gone years ago. She was part of the surrender lobby. In other words, the citizens couldn't raise any issue or fight any bad development or call into question the decisions of your zoning board and your leaders, because we might get sued. And Patty Riley was a government employee, I think, and I think her son worked for the town. So she was very, very connected. But her credibility was gone long ago. Well, anyway, not to be outdone by Patty Riley, what happened? As part of the same campaign, what did they do? Brad White made an appearance on WATD. Let's listen to some of those choice words.
Rob Hackala with the Morning Team. And as I mentioned in this segment, we're going to hear an individual from the organization Recall Marshfield 2025. They're a collection of residents who are seeking vote of Marshfield residents to remove Eric Kelley from his position as a member of the Select Board. And joining us now in studio is Captain Brad White, a Marshfield resident and a member of this group. Captain Brad White, welcome to the broadcast. Good to see you, sir.
Rob, good morning to you, and thanks so much for giving me the opportunity not just to support our other citizens on the recall of Eric Kelley from the Board of Selectmen, but to advocate for our own police department and its chief, Phil Tavares.
Now you see right away, Brad White gives it away. He's there to, as he says, advocate for our own police department and its chief, Phil Tavares. And as I've been saying all along, when you look at the petitions and the handouts that the recall people are handing out, the number one item, the number one top of the list, is titled Police Chief Phil Tavares. And it says in this handout they were given out, Eric Kelley has used his position to unlawfully threaten and undermine Police Chief Phil Tavares and Building Commissioner Andrew Stewart. Unlawfully. We've gone through it. I'll play the tape of the June 30th hearing again. Not hearing, but meeting. Where the police chief flipped the script. He inverted the narrative. He inverted the whole issue in order to basically swamp and disguise and erase the reason for the public meeting, the reason why the chief was called before the select board, which is using town resources to call somebody and make threats and make demands, according to what I heard and what I documented and sent in. That has to be investigated. When there's an allegation that an official is using public resources to try to coerce, leverage, cajole, influence, threaten a member of the public, that's a real problem. It needs to be checked out. If you don't have the guts to do it, I will. So that's what Brad White is there to do. It's obvious.
Well, yeah, I understand in this segment you wanted to focus more about specifically what happened regarding the chief of police in town, Phil Tavares, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, fill us in. What are you
So,
guys
folks,
upset
Captain
about?
Brad White here from Marshfield to share what a recall vote election means and what we citizens need to do to make it a success. First, my wife and I have lived in Marshfield for 34 years, and my family ancestry of dairy farmers and shoe industrialists since the 1800s. We love and care about Marshfield.
Okay, we get it. You're just Mr. Nice Guy. You don't rely on the police department or the harbor master or anything like that to carry out your business. You're just milking your cows, and your wife and you are just rocking on the porch, and you have no involvement with the town. You're not beholden or reliant on the town for anything, but you come to this program and you're here to make a big statement, and the only statement really was about how the chief of police was so maligned and attacked according to the recall petitioners' narratives. All because of that. All because of that, Eric, and it's all false. Eric Kelley needs to be recalled, just based on that. Why is it only based on that? Can you see it now, people? There's something smelly in Denmark here, right? Something rotten in Denmark. Something's wrong. If so many people feel so beholden and indebted and treading on eggshells all the time, why? Yeah, it's good to have people in positions like the police or military that are good guys, that are willing to help you out, that participate in charitable events, etc. Okay, they want to play all sides. They want to take a knee at a BLM rally while at the same time getting officers ready in a SWAT team in case somebody from Antifa or something shows up in town. They get all the bases covered. They take a knee, take their hat off at the BLM rally, and then at the same time, okay, everybody lock and load. Yeah, you're covering all the bases. Oh, you're going to this fundraiser for this or for this fundraiser for that or whatever. But there's a lot of very interesting statements, which we're not going to have time to get through, made by Brad White.
In our town, with 50 officers and staff, his department has secured grants for port security for a $603,000 boat, Marine Special Response Units, K-9 teams, continued life-saving training, SWAT teams, narcotic teams, well-respected detective squads, and more. We're very fortunate to have Chief Tavares. We have had only 2 police chiefs in the last 42 years, when the national average is 1 chief every 3 to 5 years. So that is incredible retention and proof of a well-oiled machine. Marshfield's always been ranked as a top safest city in America. Eric Kelley, in the past, has been forced to move off of public property when asked, where he parked a billboard trailer and posted signs without the town's approval, requiring, again, police to respond.
So Eric Kelley is a master criminal. He's a menace to society. He had a trailer with a campaign sign on it once, and he put it on a side off the road area because everybody else was sticking signs in the ground all over the place during campaign season, during voting season. And so Eric had the temerity to actually put a trailer with the sign on it to park it off the road. So he's a menace to society. He's such a bad guy, whereas the chief is such a good guy. And the police department is wonderful. The police department, according to Mr. Brad White, runs 8 departments. Management, if that's a department, information systems, harbor master, clam flats, animal control, animal inspector, information technology, and beaches. Should the police department, first of all, this is going off on a tangent, but think about it. Should your police department have that much influence over those many aspects or areas of society? Why is the police department running information systems? There's an awful, huge conflict of interest potential there. They're running information systems, the IT department, There's a police officer sitting has a desk in town hall now. And what does that IT department do? They control all communications in and out of town government. They know who's saying what to who. And there are hundreds and hundreds of cameras around the town of Marshfield, in and out of the school department. Why is the police department have involvement in some sort of control over all that? Clam flats? Beaches? Why? Why is it the police department's control been allowed to expand and expand and expand and expand? Why? Somebody answer that to me. I think that's something that we need to have an open and community debate about. But Eric Kelley is just a bad guy. He parked a sign on the side of the road. And Brad White goes on and on and on, all meaningless or unsubstantiated
Next election
facts.
and have them voted out then. Why is it so urgent in the view of you and your group?
Because it's like brittle china. Something breaks every day. We need to stop the hurt, and we need to get on with somebody that's better to get our town back. So, yes, could we wait 18 months and have the voters decide they want somebody else? Yes. If we do it now and we vote somebody in, it could cost the town $24,000, but that's a lot less than what it's costing us in lost opportunity costs right now.
That's a lot less than lost opportunity cost? What? There is no cost. He can't identify any cost to the town that can be remediated or remedied by the removal of Eric Kelley. And then Brad White goes on to make one of the most outrageous statements made by anybody during this whole witch hunt and an attempt at canceling somebody. As I talked about last week, this is about cancel culture. Somebody's Tucker Carlson or Nick Fuentes or Megyn Kelly or Candace Owens or somebody makes a statement that people on the left don't like. What do? In the special interest, what do? They just come down like a ton of bricks. Cancel him, deplatform them, ruin them. I get attacked here in Marshfield in this little show. The things I put on social media, my comments, the things I say in the show, I've been attacked, slandered, relentlessly. And also on different issues. Not only are you a NIMBY naysayer for opposing a 40B project that puts its footprint on a vernal pool, which I objected to, which would have an outsized, crazy impact on our school systems, driving thousands of chemically treated telephone poles into the areas on the banks of the Green River, which flows out into Marshfield, through Marshfield Harbor into the Atlantic. All the impacts to the environment from all these different projects, all the lack of accountability, the funny contracts being signed by our former town administrator, I get attacked. I was even against changing the term Christmas vacation or Christmas break to holiday break. I didn't like that. I was called an anti-Semite for saying that. Not by people in Marshfield, but people from beyond Marshfield. So people beyond Marshfield are watching. You can't do anything. Dr. Jeffrey Sachs, Tucker Carlson, up and down the line, national commentators, a couple I've been in touch with, they all say the same thing. No one is safe at any level of society or government. Political correctness applies, and you will be canceled no matter where you are on that ladder if you say the wrong thing and you don't toe the mark and the party line. Listen to Brad White.
So the goal is to seize the moment, get it done, and move forward.
All right, Captain Brad White.
Seize the moment and get it done. There you go. There's a big, big clue right there as to what this whole recall thing is about. They see their power and their control slipping away. Maybe Brad White's afraid that he's not going to be able to bury the bodies that he does out in the ocean. Maybe, I don't know, maybe, I want to know, are the police involved in that operation in some way? What is he going way overboard, no pun intended, to advocate for the police chief? Why? But there he goes. He says it's the time to seize the moment, get it done, and move forward. In other words, seize control back. And what else? Brad White makes another ridiculous statement about the town administrator search committee. Did you hear that?
In there,
Let's
of
play
course,
And all
nautical
along,
captain. We usually have him in
ATD is
here
playing
talking about
along.
nautical issues, but today something is he speaks out as a resident of Marshfield and a member of recallmarshfield.com. And we did have a listener that said Marshfield, I guess, technically has a town administrator, not a town manager.
I'm sorry, town administrator, TA. And by the way, we don't have a full-time one. We have an ad hoc one. And unfortunately, the search committee quit. There's 2 search committees to find it because they couldn't work with Mr. Kelley. So,
You hear that? Brad White said that the 2 search committees quit because they couldn't get along with Eric Kelley. Why didn't anybody call him out on that? No search. The search committee didn't quit. They carried out their job, as flawed as it was, as ridiculously flawed and illegitimate as it was, and the Collins Center from UMass Boston was paid good money to do that, guidance. What's he talking about? Lies. Check your facts, Mr. White. Check your facts, okay? Or you're just going to be labeled a liar unless you can retract that. And let's talk about retractions, right? But when you state absolute lies like that, that's what requires a retraction, if anything. Now, how does this play into the current situation around the town of Marshfield? Steve Darcy announces that he's not going to run for re-election.
So I know this is a little bit earlier than this is normally done, but I just wanted to have some finality to kind of relax to enjoy this upcoming holiday season with Thanksgiving and Christmas with my family. You know, I lost my grandfather this term and then my dad, so I want to take some things off my plate to spend more quality time with people I care about while I still can. So I won't be running again, so there are plenty of good folks in our town who can step up, and I just need to take it off my plate and spend time with the folks I love while I still can. So life's too short, so I feel like I've done my part, and I'm going to miss a lot of good people who work for this town and volunteer, and you know, please know that all the hard work you do is appreciated and doesn't go unnoticed. So thank you.
And thank you, Steve, for those nice, heartfelt words. But for all the meanness that you've expressed to me, don't let the screen door hit you in the ass on the way out, okay? For all the distress and acrimony that you've created, you can't leave soon enough. Goodbye and good riddance, all right? Now, you're a citizen. Hopefully you're, going to stay involved. No one's telling you can't talk. But for someone like you to be in that position and being as mean as you've been, and is just with no concern for people's privacy and feelings, especially in my case, no one's getting choked up about you leaving, buddy. And of course, now, notice, during the recall petitioning, some people were very coy. Not only were people coy about the petitioning to repeal MBTA zoning, I had officials, everybody was told at town meeting, everybody hates this. We gotta get rid of it. We shouldn't have it. It's bad. You know how many people I know in town that saw me collecting signatures for this repeal and wouldn't sign it? You know, insiders, part of the team. They wouldn't sign it. But I thought we all agreed. No, that was just a ploy to get the people up behind Roach Brothers, Bernie and all his friends to go, yeah, we don't want to risk taking a chance. Everybody drop their allegiance to the American flag and Constitution, liberty and freedom and free choice, because they feel your pain. They wouldn't sign this petition. And interesting timing. What happens next? Steve Darcy makes this announcement. Last night, this morning, what happens? What happens this morning? Whoop. Let me see if I can get this squared away. What happens this morning? What happens this morning? But Rick Smith announces that he's going to run for the select board. You know who Rick Smith was? He was the guy that said that people basically don't like others with different skin color coming into town when it comes to MBTA zoning. Now he's running for select board. Here's his announcement.
Marshfield is the greatest town on the South Shore. We have the best beaches, we have great schools, amazing history, character, and strength. Oh, and did I mention that we're one of the safest communities in the entire country? So everything must be perfect, right? Costs are going up all around us, and it's impacting our schools, our infrastructure, and our pocketbooks. And because we're such a great community, more people want to come and live here in town, but that growth, it comes at a cost. And if you've been watching town government, we're feeling a little divided. So what do? We need a strong select board. We need a board that has more than just good intentions, but that understands how to tackle complex problems.
And like he knows how to tackle complex problems, notice the timing. Notice how, although he was for the recall, from what I understand, he didn't put his name on the petition. Why? Because he thinks he can work both sides of the aisle. Good thing he announced early, because we'll have plenty of time to find out where he really stands and who he really stands with. I always question, how did this guy get on the advisory board? Where did he come from? I understand he's a vet. I understand he's well-spoken, and he can ask the right questions. But the questions he was asking were the ones that we were asking again and again and again and again and again. And we continue to ask and will continue to ask. Was he asking those questions before he became publicly visible? Will he continue to do that? Oh, we don't have time, but I wish I had time to play. At the same select board meeting last night, our old friend John Clifford, clean up on aisle 4, John, got up and spoke for, I understand, over 5 minutes. Again, Eric is honest to a fault, and Eric is for openness and transparency to a fault. When you participate in public comment time at select board meetings, I think you're only supposed to get 2 minutes. Eric let him go for 5. Eric let the room fill up with people hooting and hollering and swearing, and let Chief Tavares flip the script, flip the narrative on that whole meeting, which was supposed to be about what he did to a citizen, or what he was reported to have done to a citizen. That's where Eric's fault is. So I'm not going to have a chance to play that clip from John Clifford, but I'll hold it for next week. Also be advised that the mayor of Boston, in alliance with the governor and other people, are now talking about getting rid of Proposition 2.5. In other words, getting rid of that law that helps to put a damper on the rate at which towns can increase your real estate taxes. They're all talking about it now. It's a big story. Good night, everybody. I'm Joe Pasevich for Control Room.